All right, good afternoon, grade eights. I hope that you guys are all doing really well and that you've had a productive Tuesday so far, guys. We're back again now for week 18 of tutoring, and we've got quite a bit of work to get through today. So I hope that you guys are ready for us to get going. Guys, please make sure that you have all of your basic stationery with you, which should include a calculator. Please make sure that you have it on hand nearby. Okay. Um, Guys, I just want to give everybody else just a few minutes to join us. If you guys don't mind, I would really appreciate it if you could please type your names into the comment box for me. Just your first name is fine, it's just so that I can get a feel for who's here today, whether we have a few new students or we are just a group of students that have already been to some of my lessons before, guys. Okay. I'm going to give everyone just a few more minutes, like I said, and then we're going to get started with today's work. So, if you guys have got any questions for me before we get started, you need to please let me know now before I start working. If you guys want to know anything about exam prep or the work that we're covering, you need to please ask about it. Okay, that's one of the things that I'm here to help with. But I'm going to speak to you guys in about 3 minutes' time. So please make sure that you ask any questions if you have, guys, and then we will get started with today's work. All right. Thanks so much, grade eights. All right. Okay. So let's get going with today's work, grade 8. Like I said, we want to discuss a little bit about data handling. We want to understand what some of the important terminology is. And yes, guys, this is not necessarily the most major section within our syllabus for grade 8, but there is a lot of important information that we need to know. So let's get going. So, when we are analyzing collected data, guys, we must be able to calculate the following values. Okay, now a lot of you will already be aware of what a box and whisker diagram is, and if not, we will get to that at a later stage. But there are certain factors of information that we need to consider because it's going to yield a lot of information for us in return. Okay. Now, what are the 5 values that we want to specifically discuss in today's lesson? We want to be able to calculate the mean, guys, which is the average. Right. Now, the mean is sometimes expressed as x bar, right? The letter x, the variable x, with a line drawn on top of it. We read this as x bar, and again, it means that we are looking at the mean. So, what is the mean? The mean is the average of all data points in a data set. And we're going to focus on how we calculate these values in a second. But if you guys are still confusing your mean and your median and your mode and so on and so forth, it's important that you write these definitions down and that you understand them thoroughly. Number 2, the second value we need to know is our median. What is the median? It is the middlemost value in a data set. The middlemost data point in a data set. Right, number 3, you guys need to be comfortable with not only the concept of a mode, but how to identify it, right? The most frequent value in a data set. Now, guys, contrary to popular belief amongst a lot of students, there can be more than one mode. Right, so it's the most frequent data point in a data set. Data or data, however you choose to pronounce it, is up to you. Then we also need to make sure that we're comfortable with calculating the range. It's very easy. Right, the range is the maximum value minus the minimum value. The maximum value minus the minimum value in the data set. Now, As we progress through high school grade eights, we're going to learn more and more about how we interpret these sets of data. Right. So for now, for many of you, we've spoken about um, means, medians, modes, and ranges in class already. And you might have already started learning this already last year in grade 7. But as we move into grade 9, next year, you guys will see that we start talking about Q1, Q2, and Q3. And then we have something called our interquartile range, right? Our IQR. So these are some more values that we're going to add onto this list at some point of the tools that we can use to help us interpret data mathematically so that we can draw conclusions and to some degree understand the behavior of a certain set of data, right? Beyond this, guys, you'll see that we even start learning about more complex topics as we head into grade 10 and above, and we start talking about this idea of standard deviation, right? None of this is what we're going to be talking about today, but I want to show you that we've really got to understand the basics so that we can continue building as we move through high school. Although this isn't the biggest topic, it's definitely an understudied topic. So I hope that you guys won't make that mistake. Okay. If you genuinely understand everything that we discussed today, that's going to be great. But we are focused on understanding the mean, median, mode, and range of a data set for today. And then we'll move into some more detail next week. But I don't want to try and teach you guys too much in one go. All right. So now that we understand this, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at some examples so that we can practice identifying the four elements that we've just listed above in a variety of different examples. Okay, you can write a question next to the examples heading. Calculate the mean, median, mode, and range for the data sets below. Okay, so let's start with example number 1. Please remember grade 8s that if you guys have any questions, you need to make sure to ask me. Okay, I'm going to give you guys 1 second to quickly finish copying, and then I'm going to move on to the examples. Okay. So, example number 1, we're going to take a look at the recorded height of 7 classmates from school in centimeters. Okay, and we could be given a data set as follows. Right, let's say we have 165, we have 167, 183, 172, 176, 172, 169. These are the four different heights of students in our classroom. Okay, I'm going to leave it over here. You guys can copy those down. So the question asks that we identify or calculate the mean, median, mode, and range of this data set. So this really is all that your teachers have to give you grade 8s, and you need to be able to calculate these four different parameters. So let's start with the mean, right? The average, x bar. How do we calculate the average of a data set? Guys, it's the same way we would calculate any other average. We start by finding the total of all data points, the total value of all data points, and we are going to divide this by the number of data points. So we're going to add all the numbers up together and divide by the number of numbers that we added together. Okay. So this is a formula that you guys can write down to help you remember how to calculate the mean. So what do we need to do now? We're going to add up all of these values, starting with 165, then 167, 183, 172, 176, and another 172, plus 169. Okay. Now, what you can do is as you go through this, if I write down 165, you can either cross out or tick the number, just mark it in some other format. We have 167, 183, 172, 176, 172, and 169. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 values in the original data set, and we have 7 values that we've decided to add together in our calculation. So we can be certain that we haven't forgotten any numbers. So now that we've added all of these numbers together, we can divide by the total number of data points, which is 7, right? We've added 7 numbers together, and this is where you guys will need your calculator. So you're going to go and add everything up in your calculator and then divide by 7. And when you do that, guys, you should get an answer of 172. But what do we need to use as our unit on the end of this answer? Remember, we are measuring the height of 7 students, and we've been asked to find the average height. So this represents 172 centimeters, which is the average height of those 7 students. All right, so quickly copy that down. This is how we calculate the mean, guys, and it's always going to be the same, right? We're always going to add up the total number, the total value of all of the data points, and then divide that by the number of data points that we added together. Okay. Now, if that's our very first answer, we've gone and identified the average. Now, for step number 2, for the second parameter, our median, we have a little bit of extra work to do. So please make sure that you take note of this. and we can write it over here at the top. When you are calculating the median, you always need to use an ascending data set. What does ascending mean? It means moving from smallest to largest. So we have our data set over here at the top, which we were given by our teacher, but you need to keep in mind that it is not in ascending order. So if we want to start with question number 2 and calculate the median, we need to actually begin by reorganizing our data set. Okay, and we want it to be in ascending order, meaning from smallest to biggest. So looking at our data set that we have at the top of the screen over here, what is the smallest value that you guys can see? 165 would be first. We can cross that out. 167 comes next. We can also cross that out. Then we have 172, which appears twice in our data set. Moving up from this, there's 176. Oh, no, sorry, guys, I made a mistake. I apologize. Hold on. 169 would be next. I missed this value by mistake right at the end over here. Then we can add on our 172s, right, and cross those both out. Next would be 176. And finally, we would have 183. Again, make sure that you have not forgotten any data points. You are allowed to cross numbers out like this in your test or exam. But if you feel a bit uncomfortable doing that, you can either do it in pencil or rewrite the original data set and then work off of that. Okay, so this is our ascending data set. Now, when it comes to the median grade 8s, it's important to remember that it's not necessarily the case that we have to specifically calculate something. A lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, we are able to calculate, or sorry, identify it as opposed to calculate it. Okay? Right. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra information for today's lesson, right? So that you can use this to help you. There is a formula for the median that we can use, right? We say the median is equal to n plus 1 divided by 2. N plus 1 divided by 2. N is the number of data points in our data set. So we know that we have 7 data points plus 1 divided by 2, which is the same as 8 divided by 2. And so this gives us an answer of 4. But you need to be very careful here. It is not, the median is not the number 4, guys. Why is that not the case? Remember, the median is the middlemost value in a data set. So looking at these numbers, we only start at 165. So how can the number 4 be the middle value? That's because it's not the number 4 itself, but the fourth data point, right? You need to remember that the answer to this formula gives you a position. So what is the fourth data point? Here would be number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So it's suggesting to me that the median is 172 centimeters. Okay. Now, if we don't know anything about this formula, we've never used it before, how else can we find the median? Well, because this is a relatively small data set, we can identify the median visually. But remember, guys, the reason we have this formula is because if we are working with information that we've collected from thousands of sources, I don't have time to count, to the middle of 1,000 numbers. It's very easy for us to get lost and make silly mistakes. But if we are given the data sets that are shorter in length like this, we can do the following. If I cross one number off the left, I do the same on the right. One off the left, one off the right. And I work my way inwards until I find a number on its own. And you can see by doing this, we would also be able to visually identify that the median of our data set is the value 172, which is the same answer that we got using the formula. Okay, so remember, if we are working with small data sets, we can do this visually, right? We can identify the median using this crossing method. But if we have a large data set, it would be much smarter and much more efficient to rather use the formula that I've shown you guys. Okay, so please keep that in mind. In the end, our answer, regardless of which method we choose, is 172, which is the same as our average in this case, right? It's not necessarily uh, always going to be like that, but it is possible. Right. Next up, we have the mode grade. Grade 8s. Sorry, guys. So remember, the mode is the most frequent value in the data set. Now, it doesn't matter if we look at the original data set or the reorganized version that we have over here. All we need to do is find the number that appears most frequently. So looking at the data set from our previous answer, there's only one 165. There is only one 167. There is only one 169. But we do see that we end up having two 172s. And so in this case, guys, our mode is also going to be 172 centimeters because it's the most frequent number in our data set. Okay, so please remember that the mode is not something that we calculate, but rather something that we identify. And finally, if we wanted to calculate the range of the data set, we would need to take the maximum value minus the minimum value in the data set. The maximum value or the biggest number we have is 183 centimeters, and the smallest value is 165. So, what is the range of this data set? It's 18 centimeters. In other words, we are working across a range of 18 centimeters, which is actually quite a small range. Okay. For other kinds of examples, we could run into more complicated range calculations where we have much bigger ranges. Okay, okay, right. So there we go, guys. That's how we calculate the mean, median, mode, and range of a data set. Now, there are some examples that can make this a little bit more tricky. So we're going to take a second example. We're going to take a look at a second example now in a second. I just want to give you guys a chance to quickly copy everything down and then we'll move forward. Right. Do we have any questions so far, grade eights? Remember, guys, this is an introductory lesson that's good for revision, but it's going to set us up for our next lesson. Right. Quickly copy, and if there's anything you want to know, please ask me. Then we're going to move on to example number 2. I'll try and leave the last sections of our previous example on the screen so that you can copy. Right. Question number 2 is still going to require that we calculate the answer to these 4 parameters. But we're going to talk about the cost of a can of Fanta at 8 different shops. I'll give you 1 more minute to finish copying and then I'm going to move on. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at our second example. Again, I'm going to type out some values that you can copy. Right, there we go. There are the costs of a can of Fanta from 8 different locations or 8 different shops or sources. And again, we want to go through this process of calculating those 4 parameters that we spoke about earlier. So, if we begin by looking for the average price of a can of Fanta in our area, we're going to take the total value and divide by the number of data points. Right, the total value of the data points divided by the number of data points. So let's go ahead and do this, guys. In a test or an exam, it's not necessarily the case that you will have to write all of these out one by one. Okay, you oftentimes will be able to just do this in your calculator without your teacher requiring that you write everything out like this. But for the sake of this example that we're doing together, let's go ahead and write them out just so that if you refer back to these notes, you know what was going on. Right, there we go. We have all 8 data points, right? You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we know that we haven't missed any numbers, and we want to divide all of this by the value 8 as well. Now remember, this is calculating the cost of a can of Fanta, the average cost over 8 different stores. So if we go and plug this into our calculator, we get an answer rounded to 2 decimal places of 17 Rand and 65 cents. Remember your units, please. Okay, you may not just write the value at the end here because it means that it's unlikely that you are sure of what exactly the average is calculating. We're looking for the average cost of these cans of Fanta. And it looks like even though we have some really cheap cans that are about 14 Rand and 50 cents, we also have some more expensive cans like the 25 Rand can. Okay, so that's how we go about calculating our mean, the average. Next, let's go and take a look at our median. Remember, when it comes to the median, we may use a formula or try and identify things visually. If we're trying to calculate it with a formula, we use n plus 1 divided by 2. But what do we need to do before we can even consider this formula over here? We need to reorganize our data points into ascending order. So the cheapest cans are those that cost 14 Rand 50, of which there are two. Oh no, sorry, the cheapest is 12 Rand. 12 Rand 80. Then our 14 Rand 50 cans. Right, so we can cross all of these out. After that, the next most expensive can would be 16 Rand and 90 cents. Then a 17 Rand can, then an 18 Rand can, and finally we have the 25 Rand 50 can. Okay, so again, we have 7 values over here, which means that I missed one, and I absolutely did. I skipped the 22 Rand can. So this is why, guys, it's important to always just double check that you do have all of the numbers. Right after 18, we can quickly fill in our 22 Rand can and then our 25 Rand 50. So again, because this is a relatively small data set, guys, we could identify our median visually. We would do that by just crossing off a value on the left, then one on the right, one on the left, one on the right, and so on and so forth. But we see now that we land up in a situation where we have two values left over, right? We have 16 Rand 90 and we have 70 Rand. So the median, the middlemost value would sit exactly halfway between these two values, right? So what is halfway between 16 Rand 90 and 70 Rand? Well, according to this, it would be 16 Rand 95 cents, right? Because we'll be 5 cents away from 16 Rand 90 and 5 cents away from 17 Rand. So that's one way to visually identify our median. But let's see if we can get the same answer using our formula that we've just gone and found and learnt about. I'm going to leave this answer over here on the right, but let's go back here. The median is going to be n, which is the number of data points that we have, which is 8 plus 1. We want to divide this by 2, but this leaves us in a bit of an awkward situation because 9 divided by 2 gives us 4.5. Now remember, that's not the value of our median, right? This is the 4.5, the, how do I even put this into English words? The fourth and a half value in the data set, right? So it means we still have to go and count. Here's value number 1, data point 1, data point 2, 3, and 4. And if this one is 5, if I need 4.5 grade 8, it means that I need to be halfway between 16 Rand 90 and 17 Rand. So regardless of which way I do this, I still find that my average cost of a can of Fanta over the 8 stores that we've looked at is 16 Rand and 95 cents. Right? I hope that that makes sense, guys. Okay, guys, let's wrap up the last two very quickly. Let's talk about the mode, sorry, and the range. Remember, the mode and the range are much easier to work with. If we're looking for the mode, it's the most frequent value in our data set, and there is only one value that repeats itself twice, which is 14 Rand 50 cents. So now you can see, unlike in our last example, our average is 17 Rand 65. Our median is 16 Rand 95. And our mode is 14 Rand 50 cents. Okay, so please do not fall into the trap of thinking that all of these values should be similar. It's not always going to be the case. What is our range, guys? It's the maximum value minus the minimum value. Right, according to our reorganized data list, sorry guys, our maximum value is 25 Rand 50 and the minimum is 12 Rand 80. So you've got to make sure that you contextualize your answers, guys, by giving them the correct units. But in this case, 25 Rand 50 minus 12 Rand 80 is going to give us an answer of 12 Rand and 70 cents. So even though the average can of Fanta, excuse me, the average can of Fanta is about 16 Rand and 95 cents, the difference between the cheapest and most expensive can is 12 Rand and 70 cents, right? And think about it, we're selling exactly the same thing in both stores. So why would there be such a difference? Why is there such a big range between the cheapest and the most expensive can of Fanta, right? Maybe one is being sold by a local shop that just tries to help everybody out with lower prices. Another shop is maybe Pick and Pay, who's a little bit more expensive. And then maybe you've just got a can of Fanta that was bought at an international store, right? And or maybe it was bought at the airport. It's going to be much more expensive in certain locations. All right. And so there we go, grade eights. That's how we go about calculating the mean, median, mode, and range of a data set. Okay. Now, guys, I want us to continue again with this section of work next week. So I'm not going to use iRainbow today, but I will show it to you tomorrow. Okay. So please work with me in that regard. But that is pretty much what you guys have got to know as far as the basics are concerned. Um, Actually, guys, I'll just quickly be able to show you where to find the quizzes. We obviously won't have time to go through it together, but I will show you where you can find the appropriate work to practice this. Okay, so let me quickly stop sharing my screen. I'm going to give you one more minute and then show you guys iRainbow. And we'll take a look at some questions that we can use to practice this work. Do we have any questions, grade eights? Is there anything that's confusing you guys about what we've spoken about today? Okay, guys, I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen now and instead show you iRainbow. All right, so just give the screen an opportunity to quickly change, and you guys should be able to see iRainbow on your screen relatively quickly. So, first of all, grade eights, please make sure that your softwares are up to date, right? That's the first thing. Next, if you want to find a quiz on this section, you need to please go ahead and open the section on data handling at the bottom left. And then you will see a section called Collect, Organize, and Summarize Data. And under here, we have a few important quizzes that you guys can try, with the two obvious ones being the mode and the median, and the mean and range. Okay, you guys can use these two quizzes to practice and just make sure that you guys are up to scratch with this section of work. But beyond that, guys, I've really been through all the fundamentals of this section as far as the four parameters that we use to interpret our work. Next week, we will dive into a little bit more detail surrounding this section. But, guys, that is going to be it for today. It looks like we have finished a few minutes early, but I'm sure that that's not going to be too major of a concern to you guys. I do appreciate those of you that joined, coming to see what today's lesson was about. But guys, that's going to be it for today. Okay. Please keep in mind that there are recordings of all of the previous grade 8 lessons on Facebook or on YouTube here. So you can use these videos as resources to help you study and prepare for your exams, which I know many of you will be starting in the next 2 weeks. If there are any specific topics you guys would like for us to go through, you need to please let me know. All right. Um, yeah, guys, lastly, our next lesson is going to be next week, Tuesday, again from 4:15 to 5:15 in the afternoon. So I hope that I'll see you guys here and that maybe some of you have some recommendations as to what you'd like to go through. But that's going to be it for today, guys. So have a fantastic week ahead of you, and I'll speak to you all again next week. All right. Thank you so much, grade eights.